It's lovely to meet you, fellow nesters. I'm going to assume it's a Tuesday evening, and the only people who are going to come to a talk like this will be people with nesting in mind. And I'm hoping over the course of the evening we'll have a bit of fun with it, and kind of looking at the very many speckled types of nests that there can be. It's not necessarily an empty nest. It may be just a varying nest. It may be an overflowing one. It may be some people are out, some people are in, some people are coming back. It's all manner of nests, really, what we're looking at. And one of the things that I was struck myself when I was doing the research was thinking about, for myself, because I am a mum, was what is it that I would like, or what am I considering when I'm thinking about empty nest? And actually then something happened today and I thought, now I know what I would like about empty nest myself. One of my daughters, I have 3, one of them phoned me today, sounded very glum. And she's like, Mum, I'm really sorry for ringing you in work. I'm really, really sorry. And I'm like, okay, this isn't good. She doesn't normally ring me in work. She's 19. I'm like, okay, you know the way you just brace yourself? You're even unconscious, but you just hear that voice and you're like, okay, I'm ready. There's incoming. And I'm sitting there going, yeah. And she said, look, I'm really, really sorry to get you in work, but I just need to tell you. She goes, I think I'm pregnant. Thank you. That's exactly. I was like, what? Couldn't even speak. I'm processing all of this in my head. I'm kind of thinking, okay, don't open your mouth, don't say anything. I mean, the amount of things that went through my head, and some of you may actually have been in that position during your lifetime. This was my first time. And next thing she goes, gotcha, April Fool's Day. I thought I was going to be sick, honestly. And I thought, now, do you know what? When my nest is empty and hers is full, may she now know what it is to hold stuff that we don't even know we're holding, and then go, oh my God. And then may she realise that she needs to grow up and get a different sense of humour. Honestly, I wasn't the better for it all day. She's cracking up still, coming out. She said, oh my God, Mum, I think that was the best ever. But we do, as people who have, who create nests, who have children, and in our nests there'll be people, there'll be animals, there'll be all sorts. We hold an awful lot. Even unconsciously we're holding it without even recognising it. So hopefully we're going to speak to some of that this evening. Okay, because really what we want to do when we're talking about this kind of empty nest thing is yes, there's how to survive, but let's face it, we've reached this stage in life, we've survived already. What we want to do is we want to thrive, and we want to look at how can we thrive and what will it be to thrive. Because all those antenatal classes that we did on our own, with our partners, whatever, they kind of prepared us for the arrival, but they never really prepared us for this bit. That just like that, all the time we were completely consumed with every waking moment of what they did, what they ate, what they produced in the loo, everything. Now suddenly they're gone. And we're often left there going, no matter how full our life is, we were dedicated to this role, consciously or unconsciously, for 20 years. As they say, it's about 20 years that we do that. I mean, if you were in your job, we were referencing, Kate earlier on, retiring. I mean, when we start to reach the stage when our children leave home, we're actually retiring from a particular role that we had. We will still be a parent. We will still be that person, but it won't be the same. The role is changing. We're retiring from that bit and we're taking it on to the next bit. If we were in work, we'd be doing a pre-retirement course. We'd be doing training to get us into that headspace. When it comes to this and our children becoming adults, there really isn't very much training. And a lot of you will have actually gone to school evenings where you were learning about their homework and how they should do this and how they should play and how they should date and how they should do all sorts. But very few, school classes are actually preparing you to let go and know how to let go. Or for the ones that are actually, you're happy to let go, it's actually teaching them how to let go. So what we're looking at is, what is this thing called empty nest? And because there's all sorts of pieces, and when I started to look into it, a lot of the time when I'm doing talks, it's around coping and what is coping. And, this is a life change. This is a developmental stage for us as adults. This is us now going into the next stage of our lives. So what is it that we're actually talking about? So really, it isn't a clinical diagnosis. It isn't. Okay? Instead, it's a syndrome. It's a phenomenon in which parents experience feelings of sadness and loss when the last of their children leaves home. Now, when a lot of this research was starting out, the idea was it was when the last left home. But actually, for a lot of us, we may have a child with us for a very long time. It could be when one of our children leaves home. Because as we know, children are staying at home for longer. Okay? The other bit is, while there's no figures that actually exist for the number of, for the effects, an awful lot of psychologists would say, actually, because it's so common, you could nearly say it's universal. This is something that affects anybody who is a parent at some stage, whether it's a fleeting moment of, oh, they're going, yes! There is that piece of, we are becoming empty nesters. We're moving into the next stage. So it is a universal phenomena. Okay? And in the past, research suggested that parents, when they were coming to this stage, could feel a sense of loss. There may be grief for the role that they had. They may actually become vulnerable to, a drop in mood, maybe more alcohol, possibly because there's more time and there's more socialising. There may be an identity crisis. If I have worn that role of parent, very heavily, and it's been my main role, when it moves, it's what am I going to be now? What will be my next role? And there may be marital conflicts, because now actually there's no distractions. It's just us. It hasn't just been us for a very long time. So it's, actually, do I know you anymore? And we can also start to, because it happens at a stage when we are getting older, so it's that question of our own mortality. Oh, okay, if children have gone, what's next? My own life, how much longer do I have of my own life? We also reflect on our parenting style. Gosh, was I the parent I thought I was going to be? What was their experience like? Oh my God, was I good enough? Was I all they wanted? Was I all I hoped I'd be? So there can be all this kind of self-reflecting, which can trigger self-doubt and all manner of things for us. But actually, recent studies have actually lent more to the fact that actually it started to reduce work and life conflict. Because the pace of life has got so fast and the pressure has got so big that actually as children move on, there can actually be those bills have been reduced. The laundry's been reduced. The cleaning up may have been reduced. There may actually be more headspace to process things that we want to process. And it can provide us with actually a lot of benefits. There can be a lot of pluses to this. Rather than looking at the negatives, they're kind of saying, actually, do you know what? What seems to be happening is there's a lot more pluses coming out of it. That when the last child leaves home, parents have a new opportunity to reconnect with each other, to improve the quality of their marriage, rekindle interests or their relationship, their partnership, or interests in which they previously might have had. Or for some, it could be the point where they say, actually, do you know what? This isn't for me. I am ready now to start another phase. So it changes the relationships that we have. Empty nest syndrome often coincides with other major life events. It isn't something that happens in a vacuum. So for women, menopause can often coincide with the same time, which can have huge effects on how we see ourselves and our future, and also how we're feeling in ourselves. Can also coincide maybe with retirement. So there's a lot of things that can be going on at the same time that can actually have a knock-on effect. Okay, it does, from all of the evidence, impact women in particular, because motherhood is still viewed as a primary role for both working and stay-at-home mums. Now, dads can be primary carers and primary parents, but there is this, from the research, there is this connection that is still there very strongly. So they say a lot of the research is done is coming from that female piece. That even if you're outside at work, there's that kind of parenting piece. The micro-parenting piece is often comes from the mum bit. And actually as a role, they kind of say it's a 20-year job. When you sign on to take a child, it's going to take, you're going to be doing it for 20 years. So it's going to be quite a shift when you stop or it becomes something else. Okay. So psychologists consider that the transition from being an actively involved, like full-time parent, and again, while the literature here says mum, we're going to recognise it as a full-time parent, can take anything from 18 months to 2 years. So it's a bit like, if we know Christmas is going to be in December and it's potentially stressful, it's better not to wait till Christmas, the day before Christmas, to get sorted. It's like, I know it's coming, okay, would be helpful if I was to I could prepare and plan for that. And it doesn't mean they're suddenly all going to pack the bags and head out the door at the same time, but I actually know it's coming. It can be a time for, actually, I need to start thinking about what I could do, what needs to be done different, what I might explore. Okay? And then this means that it's vital to allow yourself the time. They use the word grieve, but for some people, and we'll get into this, our view of empty nesting and our changingness are different. It's not the same for everybody. Some of us will grieve. Some of us may rejoice, but for all of us, it's a change. So we do need to give ourselves time to work through this loss of that particular role. We need to give ourselves some time to rebuild the things in our life that are important for us now, at this stage. A lot of the time we talk about we cannot give from an empty well, and when we're in the full throes of parenthood, we're all about that. But this is a stage where it can be a little bit calmer than that kind of frantic, got to get the gym class in, got to go with my friend for this, It's that piece of, you cannot drink from an empty cup. All those cups of tea that you left on the counter and they went cold when you went back to them. This is the time when you can actually have those cups of tea, when they're still hot. You could make them yourself, or somebody can make it. It's that piece of, I can actually start taking this time for me, for myself. So a big piece in this transition for us coming from the adult side is we need to be gentle with ourselves. We need to be gentle with our expectations of ourselves, and also our expectations of our offspring. Because, they've grown up. They may not necessarily be doing what we would like them to be doing, or we had envisaged for them. And there's that piece too. So we need to be gentle both with ourselves and with where our young people are. So when does it start? If I know it's 18 months to 2 years in the offing, when is it going to start so I can start to plan? Now, when I look back over the census, between the 2011 and the 2016 census, which is our most recent census, I wouldn't be worrying too much about it being too imminent. Don't know if you can read that. Robbie dear, I think it's time you moved out. Because one of the pieces that came from the census is that actually 500,000 of our adult children are still living at home at the time of that census in 2016. We're still living at home with a parent, and 2 adults, a child that is now an adult living at home, changes the dynamic hugely. So if you're a home where there are 2 parents, you've now got 3 adults in the house where there was previously just 2. So there's a kind of a vie for power and, who's doing what. If you've been a single parent household where there's been 1 adult and it's been me and I've been in charge, suddenly, boom, you put a second adult, and that's where that line comes in. And I remember my own at home kind of going, well, not under my roof became the line. Because it was like, you're an adult now, okay? Some of the rules and the things that you held before don't actually hold water now, because I'm an adult, I can argue them. So it became, well, not under my roof. This is my house, my home. At the moment now, you're an adult, so therefore you just actually have to live by my rules in my home. So that's an interesting one, that we have 500,000. And of that 500,000, a quarter, over 200,000, are the number of working adult children living at the home. So now they've not only got independence, attitude, all those things, they've got money. So they're not relying on you necessarily. They may also not be contributing, and that's a piece you've got to decide in your own home what you want to do. So it changes. Their coming and going is different. How they are with their money is different. Of that then again, you have 67,000, give or take, the number of unemployed adult children living with the parent, which means they don't have money, so you're supporting them. We, as adults, are supporting them. And actually in America, the statistic they have is 44% of children, adult children, are being supported by their parents. So they took it as an age span from 18 to 25. That's very high. That's very high. At a time in your life when you're kind of going, actually, I've kind of done my job, I might be retiring, might be whatever, but actually I'm supporting. I still have to keep earning. Instead of kind of turning some of the volume down in my capacity to earn, I possibly need to turn it up because they need more money. Whether it's because they're staying in education, or whether it's because, they just can't get jobs. Or the cost of renting, as we know, is so astronomical. And it's also beyond the reach of many to buy their own homes. So there are implications for us. Yeah. So of those numbers, another interesting statistic is adults accounted for nearly 60% of that group living at home. So that's more males. And let's face it, adult males, are from children, they take up more space. There's just a bit more minding in them, at that stage than there is in the girls. But interestingly enough, from 2011 to 2016, there was an increase in both males and females still living at home. So both those numbers were going up. So our nests, rather than kind of shrinking, some of them are actually expanding. They're actually, we're losing space because we've more adults in them than we had thought. However, there is hope. For those of you who are thinking, oh no, I won't have one of these nests that I've dreamt of. And that is, the numbers fall dramatically with age being after 25. Okay, so while there were 24,000 give or take at the age of 25 still living at home, it had dramatically dropped by the age of 30. So whatever stage you're at, by 30 you should all be relatively okay. So the thing is, you may be looking more at a kind of an emptier nest rather than an empty nest. Which for some of you, you may be quite happy with that. For others, it may be, oh, okay, I need to reconsider what some of my plans may have been. Okay, so just some interesting kind of facts and stats, because I always think these are kind of an interesting one to see how are we comparing, or actually how am I comparing to everybody else at this stage, because my own nest is not empty, but it's definitely, I have some going, I have some coming, and I also have an elderly parent as well who hasn't decided if they're coming or going just yet. This is from research they did in America, and they did it on a broad score. I'm trying to think, was it on 1,000 adults? 26% reported feeling like newlyweds. Fabulous for them, but remember that still leaves all the others who weren't necessarily. So they could have been questioning their relationship, but that's fine. But for this group, happy days. 34% reported feeling closer, just closer, not like newlyweds, but just closer. They just had shifted, the relationship shifted into a different space. 58% of those surveys said they were emotionally ready when the time came. So they had actually given it thought. They were in that space. And interestingly enough of that, 77% were men who were saying, yeah, I'm well ready, while it was 55% for women. So even though it was less for women, it was still more than half were saying, no, I'm ready for this. 40% did accept that their child may well return. And this is where some of you may become familiar with the term the boomerang generation. They've left, they've kind of said goodbye, maybe they've gone off to college, maybe they've started working, but then they come back because they want to save for a mortgage to get a house. Or actually they can no longer afford where they're living and they have to come back. These are realities for us, these boomerang generation that may come back. Okay. On top of having a boomerang generation, some of us may find ourselves in that sandwich generation where actually you may have a child or two children who have gone. You may still have a child at home, maybe still in education. And then you have a parent who's coming in. So you're kind of sandwiched between, caring for children and caring for elderly parents. So this time when I actually thought I would be free of somebody, I'm not free of anybody. I have them at both ends. Some other statistics that I came across that I kind of thought were interesting. In another survey done by Del Webb of 509 adults, 95% of them between the ages of 40 and 70 were positively excited at the notion of being empty nesters. 2/3 were just relieved that they wouldn't have to attend, you like this, tedious school functions anymore. Do you remember all those evenings that were given up to doing things in school? 2/3, so you weren't alone. 2/3 were actually just relieved they wouldn't have to do those. And 68%, I thought this was very interesting, said they would rather pay to keep their children out than have them return. So if they had the money, they would rather go back and work and give them the money to keep them out and independent. It wasn't that they didn't love them, but it was like, this is my space now. You need your space, we need to be separate. That's quite a high number, isn't it? Do you know? And as I said before, 44% had unemployed children that they were supporting, which is high. Do you know that is high? So these are important things for us to consider. And the University of California, Berkeley, again looked at the age between the 40 and 70-year-olds and said that they were happier and we're looking forward to a new start, a new phase in life. So our perception and how we're looking at this has an awful lot to bear on where we're at with it. So really what we're talking about is two sides of the one coin. There's those of us who are here who say, I can't wait. And this is a quote I got when I was doing this. I kind of was putting it out there. Can't wait, love them dearly, but there's too many adults and opinions in our house, which isn't actually a hotel. You know, so there's those who'll be in that camp, and that's perfectly fine. And then there's the alternative side, which is I'm not ready. I'm not ready, which also means they're not ready. And if they're not ready, and then there's that clash between the two who are kind of saying, I don't think you're doing the right thing. I think you should be doing this thing, because they're independent and they're making their own minds up and they're not necessarily doing what we want them to do. And therein can lie where some of the strain can be in our relationships. Okay? So some of the views from the other sides. Some of you may have come across, Brendan O'Connor did a programme on empty nesting. And he was speaking to, some of you may know Claire Ronan of Ocean FM. Her thing was, I had 5 children under 7, and by having them so close together, they all went away at the same time. It was the biggest shock of my life. Suddenly, you know that thing of when they're little, if you have them all together, but they'll all leave at the same time. And one of the things that she did is she went back to college, and she retrained, and she's now a DJ on the radio. But for her, it was a conscious. She said it was such a shock to her system. That she needed something else to develop a whole new role. Dr. Piers McAinry, who is a lecturer in UCC. Yet at a certain level, after Muireann, his daughter, was away for a few years, I realised that the Muireann that's out there now in the world is not the one that left that bedroom behind her. You know, and sometimes we can do that. We can have the mausoleum to them. Well, they'll come back at the weekends, or they'll come back in the holidays, and they'll come back and it remains untouched. But it's like the person who's in the world is not the person who left that particular room. Yes, they can have a bed, and yes, they can have a space. But actually, you might want to do something with that space. It might turn into something for you. Your man cave, or your woman cave. You know, to remember that the person out in the world isn't that person. What they want is they need roots. They know each other, that they can come back. But it's now going to be on your term as a parent. Yeah. The other one is then from singer Mary Coughlan. And she was talking about her daughter. And Mary Coughlan had a lot of her adult children had moved in with her and with her grandchildren at one point. So she said, like, she had 3 generations in the one house. And she said, while I loved it, it was chaotic, it was frantic, it was all of these. And then her daughter moved to Australia. And she said, rather than being devastated and heartbroken, she showed me how to write an email and send it before she left. A whole new world opened up for me because she got me gigs in Australia. It was just this whole other world then opened. And it was like, oh, okay. You know, we can look at where are the opportunities in this. And then from the lived experience, I came across a very interesting article, Saying Goodbye to My Child, the Youngster. It was published recently in the Washington Post. Some of you may know Michael Gearson. And he wrote after he dropped his eldest son off, so this was the last of them to go to college, saying it was the worst thing that time had done to him. And what he said is, with due respect to my son's feelings, I have the worst of it. I know something that he doesn't. Not quite a secret, but incomprehensible to the young. He is experiencing the adjustments that come with beginnings. His life is starting for real. I've begun the long letting go. And that's a lot of it is the bit that we're struggling with. It's that long letting go piece. So what we're talking about when we're talking about empty nesting, emptier nesting, varying of nesting, it's the balance between building, holding on and letting go. And life up to this has been that point of holding on and letting go and holding on and letting go. And when we keep trying to hold on to things, it creates our distress. So, what lessons have been learnt? If there's no one fits all and, what can I do? I know I need to prepare. But what are lessons that people who have been on the other side have learnt? So the learning that they've left us with is, one is just how confusing the shifting of roles can be. That's part of our struggle. The Do I text my son every day or my daughter? Do I text them every day? Do I text them some days? Should it be on a Sunday? What day will it be? Or maybe I don't text them at all. Maybe I have to wait for them to text me. Who's going to be in the driving seat with this? Do I book the train ticket for them to come back or the airplane ticket? Do I take control or do I leave them to take control? One parent was saying, I went from knowing what he ate for dinner each day to just free fall. When it's that piece about going, okay, this is going to be different. They are adults. Another piece of learning is how hard the absence of one child is on the siblings and the whole family dynamic. So it may not be that I have an empty nest. Maybe it's that I have an emptier nest. And when one goes, that knock-on effect, having a child leave home changes the whole family dynamic. Not only has it impacted on me, but it's impacted my husband and my other son and daughter. Even the dog is out of kilter. Do you know? So it's this thing of, it's, we need to consider the effect on everybody. And no, this is normal. This is change. We don't have to like it, but it's okay. Yeah? The other piece is how important time with just the family unit really is. All those times that you spent time with your children doing one-on-one or as a unit, it's really important. And they would say, particularly in the year before they fly the nest, so that they realise that the nest is there. We're here, we have your back. We don't always like you, we don't always agree with you, but we will always love you. And that's a really profound message. The quiet company and support of loved ones makes up the foundation on which any child's future rests. The other bit is, and this is something that all of us who've been parents face, you're just not going to be the parent you thought you were. We all start off with this notion of the parent we will be, what we will do, what we won't do, all the things we've seen others do. I'm not going to do that. I'm so not going to be that parent. And you reach the stage going, do you know? You were a parent. You did the best you could. You tried the best that you could. You're now at a stage where you're moving into having adult relationships. So whatever mistakes were made, you can now discuss them as adults, hopefully find that space. Okay? But accepting that it's okay. Nothing is perfect and things are always changing. So, it's the adventures of being an empty nester, really. Or an emptier nester, or the owner of a many speckled nest. Is really what we're looking at, and what it is to be, what are these adventures that we could possibly have? Scary and all as they may seem at the outset. So, while letting go of our children is the most sacrificial way that we can love them, which is very deep and meaningful, there's got to be benefits. Like we can go on holidays, and we don't have to pay for them all to come, and we don't have to organise the entertainment for all of them. We can just think of what we want. Also don't have to clean their mess. And I think if you've adult children living at home, a great thing to do is to find a handyman. If you don't have one in your home, pay one to put hinges on their bedroom doors so that as they walk out the door, it closes so you don't have to see their mess. They're adults, it's their mess. Our problem is that if we see it, we feel we need to go in and engage with it. So just let the door close. The way you can get those swing doors in kitchens and in hotels, you see them? That's what we need in their bedrooms. The other thing is we could actually look at what we're going to do with the space. Those big shoes, those big bags in the hall, all their stuff everywhere. And they'd be like, oh gosh, do you know what? What you could do, you could use it to decorate a luxurious guest room. You could have visitors that you want to come. Yeah. You could build your dream library. Or you could create a fitness room. Stock up a man cave. Set up a craft and hobby room. Doesn't really matter. But you can use the space. We don't need to block it off and say nobody can touch that. Homes are vibrant, ever-changing spaces. Use your extra time. Travel the world. Remember, you have all that extra money. Adopt a pet. Adopting a pet, you can get a pet, but if you adopt a pet, it means that you have somebody who will always take it when you go on those holidays. Start a business. The day of having one job that does us for our lifetime is long gone. And our children definitely won't be doing that. So it's for ourselves, no, actually we could go and do something completely different. Join a league or a club. And all the evidence now for health and well-being and longevity has found that really one of the biggest key things is being socially connected. So being part of things we like. Volunteer. Go back to school, go back to education. This notion that we stop learning in our 20s is so long gone. We are always learning. And it ticks those boxes as well. When you look at the evidence base around the dementias and cognitive decline, is the more we keep our brain active, involved, engaged, we feel better, we do better. And it's fun. So what can we actually do? What is the practical stuff that we can look at doing that will be helpful? One of the things to start with, and somebody was telling me about this, was to decide on what your ritual of passage will be. And this can be around your key to your house. Because remember, it's your house and it's their home, but it's your house. So do you have a ritual that says, okay, you give me back the key? I may give you a key. I may decide you can have a key, but you give me back the key that you have, and then I give you your adult key. Because when you come back into the house, you're coming in now as an adult. So you can decide whether or not they have a key, they don't have a key, but you can create a ritual if you think that would be helpful for you. But what you do need to do above all is to allow yourself time to, and as I said, grieve. For some of us it will be grieving. For others it will be grieving the moving on of our children from being children, young children who need us to adults, to grieving just the change of our own role. Deciding what that is and letting it happen. And remember, you're not just a parent. You were never just a parent. And I don't mean that as to diminish the role of parent, but you were lots of things. You were friend, you were comrade, you could have been in-house comedian, you could have been caterer for all the dudes, you could have been all manner of things. You had all different roles. It's, gosh, what are the other roles that I have? How do I develop those? How do I nurture those? Prepare your children. We need to prepare our children. And there was a piece that was done it was in Harvard, in the Ivy Leagues in America. One of the head of the colleges got together and saying they were having a problem. They were having a problem with first year students because the dropout rate was going up. It wasn't that they couldn't do the work, it's that they couldn't cope with living on their own, doing the washing and doing the demands of, staying on top of assignments as well as. So we need to teach them the basics. How to cook, that they have a repertoire of about 5 meals to do out of cheap stuff. How to cook, how to use the washing machine, how to use an iron. Not that many of them iron anyway, but how to use an iron is helpful. We need to teach them these things. If they don't know how to do it, we can't expect them to survive. We actually need to teach them. And we can take our eye off that particular ball and not teach the practical skills that they need. So we need to make sure. And there's Wikipedia have, they call wiki cheats. And you get cheat sheets on everything. How to change the tyre, how to do a light bulb, how to fix a fuse in a socket, how to cook spaghetti bolognese. It's all there. So we need to teach them these things. And then we need to prepare ourselves. What am I going to do? If I had this time, if every Wednesday was my time to, that we sat down and had family dinner, what would I do on a Wednesday instead? If I did all the school runs and I sat on the school committees, what will I do now? I need to prepare, decide what I'm going to do with the time that I'm going to have. What adventures would I like for myself? Keep in touch with them and decide between you how that's going to be, what kind of communication you're going to go for. Don't be careful of doing too much. We can overdo it sometimes if we're struggling with the letting go. They're not struggling, it'll be us struggling. So get your support network going, your own friends, and talk. And focus on the positives. You've done a good job. This was the job as a parent you signed up for. The day they were born, you signed up for the job of then letting them go into the world. So focus on, I did my job. Engage in hobbies. You may not have had the time, or maybe you didn't have the time to expand them as much as you would like. So find out the things that you might like that might interest you. And then beware the empty nester paradox, which came up time and time again, which is that I was really dreading it, and now I've done this work, and now I'm doing all of this stuff, and oh my God, they said they're coming on Sunday, all of them. And it's like, but I don't want them. Much and all as I love them, I'm actually enjoying my time. They're just not this Sunday. Maybe we could do Sunday week, So it's that paradox of thinking, I don't want it, but actually, now that I've got this time, I don't necessarily want to give it back. And the thing to be aware of is, I found this piece from the Dalai Lama. It says, give the ones you love wings to fly, roots to come back, and then reasons, and I edited, for them to come back for dinner. Always have those bits, but always remember, children will never say the obvious thing. We as adults will say, like, I love you, or I appreciate you. We've done that. They were never really in that role of telling us that they loved us. So they might not necessarily come into that kind of, oh, I love you, you were great parents. You know, so just remember, from their perspective, no matter what age they are, this couldn't be their agenda. And that's fine. Just let them. It's the fact they're coming home and they're spending time. It's in the non-verbals we say far more than anything else. So it's the fact that they want to be there. So that's fine. Whether it's the food, the dog, the wine, they're there because it's you. Because it's your food, it's your wine, it's your home, it's your kitchen. Yeah. So the biggest thing is to stay motivated in all of this. You know, make plans. You know, when they look at the kind of things that, you know, elements, there's kind of key elements that can contribute to happiness. One is to make plans for trips that you may never take, which is great. It won't cost you anything. But actually the process of planning, it's dreaming. You know, let yourselves dream. Have plans. Do take the trips because now you can. You know, take care of yourself. You've spent this time taking care of everybody else. You know, it's like you've stood on the train platform all of your parental life for the last 20 years and you've made sure everybody else was on the train. They had the seat by the window. They went to the loo. They knew where the food carriage was. They had entertainment. They were all done. And then you stood there on the platform and you've always waved them off. You were never on the train. You were too busy making sure that they were. Now you can get on the train. You know, so look to changing your own habits, your own way of doing things so that you make it different. Take stock and indulge in rewards for your hard work. You've earned it at this stage. Look forward to visits when they do come, but on your terms. You decide. You know, do they come and do they sleep over or do they stay in the local guest house if they're all coming en masse? Maybe you love that open house, maybe you don't. But you decide. These are now adult relationships. Rediscover your own inner child. And then pat yourself on the back. Because whatever choices they're making, they're their choices. You know, we don't have to like them. You know, we don't have to approve them, but they're their choices. And you've reared children who make choices. And that's the piece. So pat yourself on the back for that piece. And enjoy it. Above all, enjoy it. Because looking at the senses, looking at all the statistics, looking at all the bits that we have, so there's no holy grail. There's no, you know, one fits all for any of this. So what I just wanted to read was to finish on was a poem. If you'll indulge me in this one. It's by Eleanor Nost. It's called Life's Amazing. And it's just in the context of this being, it's the developmental stage that we're all going through. Life's amazing. And then it's awful. And then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and the awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing. Hold on through the awful. And relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living. Heartbreaking, soul healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life. And it can be breathtakingly beautiful. There you go. There's some useful facts for those of you who want them. You've got your WikiHow for your life skill sheets, your age action. There's all manner of stuff that you can use. Apps, blogs. There's a whole world out there. Thank you. Okay.